sure if that was actually a foul, but again, that's for the ticky-tack fouls that we were talking about earlier.
The WNBA has just made a shocking announcement that's putting Brittney Griner in the spotlight. After years of rumors and speculation, the league has officially introduced mandatory gender testing for all players. The timing couldn't be more critical. For Griner, who is already facing intense backlash over her recent controversial remarks about Caitlin Clark. This decision could have far-reaching implications for the league and its athletes. What do you think? Is the WNBA's new gender testing policy a long overdue measure to protect the integrity of women's sports, or is it simply a move designed to stir up controversy?
Worse for Griner, who's already dealing with massive backlash from her controversial comments about Caitlin.
Well. Looks like the chickens are finally coming home to roost for Brittney Griner. Just when it seemed like the backlash over her viral video, where she allegedly called Caitlin Clark some highly disrespectful names, was starting to fade, the WNBA delivers a bombshell: mandatory gender testing for all players. The timing? Absolutely wild. Depending on your point of view, it's either perfect or a PR disaster. The league is trying to spin this as a routine policy update aimed at ensuring fairness and competitive integrity. But let's be honest, no one's buying that. This move has Griner's situation.
Brittney Griner is, in fact, a man. One of the videos that give us cause to say that is this video. It is from her Instagram stories from years and years.
Written all over it, and she knows it. For years, there have been rumors, speculation, and flat-out questions about whether all WNBA players are biologically female. The league has tiptoed around the topic, treating it like a third rail. But now, it seems they've decided they can't keep dodging the issue. The official statement from the WNBA was bland and predictable, full of PR buzzwords and vague reassurances. But everyone knows what this is really about. This isn't just about policy. It's about finally addressing what fans, critics, and commentators have been whispering about for years: that something just doesn't add up with certain players.
And when it comes to Instagram, they use a combination of like AI detection and plus manual surveyors to make sure that no explicit content ends up on the platform. So clearly whatever AI detection system was used when Brittney posted this, and it stayed up for 106 weeks.
Brittney Griner has long been at the center of quiet speculation surrounding gender in professional women's basketball. From the moment she entered the WNBA, her physical presence, deep voice, and appearance have sparked questions the mainstream sports media has largely avoided. But with the WNBA's recent decision to implement mandatory gender testing for all players, those whispers may finally be met with official answers. According to reports, the new policy will require every athlete to undergo comprehensive hormonal and chromosomal testing before each season. This isn't your typical drug screening.
It was not like, oh, this is a female chest, we have to take this down. Oftentimes, if breast cancer runs in a family, women will preemptively get like double mastectomies. And there's some great surgeons out there, don't get me wrong, but I don't see any scars on Brittney's chest that would be indicative of a double mastectomy or top surgery for gender trans.
This is an in-depth biological evaluation designed to verify whether players meet the league's criteria for female eligibility. Independent medical experts will review the results, and any player who fails to meet the standards will be barred from competition. Unsurprisingly, media outlets and advocacy groups have already begun pushing back, labeling the policy as discriminatory, invasive, and transphobic. But supporters argue that women's sports exist to offer fair competition for biological females, and that maintaining those boundaries isn't controversial, it's foundational. The timing couldn't be worse for Griner. She's still facing public scrutiny following a viral video in which she appeared to make a racially charged remark about Caitlin Clark, the breakout star credited with breathing new life into the WNBA. That incident cast serious doubts on Griner's character in the eyes of many fans, and now this new policy could put her entire career under the microscope.
get into that is really hard and really scary. You're about to be a mom. How is that feeling? Pops. Oh, let me get it together. About to be a pops. Please tell me how exciting that is for you and what you're looking forward to most.
I'm super excited. Well, I mean, I guess I'll just drop it. He's here. So he's here, yes. 7.
Let's be honest about what we're dealing with. Brittney Griner stands at 6'9", has a notably deep voice, and displays physical characteristics that, to many observers, seem more aligned with male biology than female. These aren't personal attacks. They're observations that have sparked public debate for years, even as mainstream media has largely chosen to ignore them. One particular moment that reignited speculation was an old Instagram video showing Griner shirtless. Oddly, Instagram's AI didn't flag it for nudity, which many have interpreted as a signal that even automated systems struggled to classify her as biologically female. When artificial intelligence can't make a clear distinction, it raises legitimate questions. Questions many believe humans should have been asking all along. But beyond appearances and algorithms, it's Griner's athletic performance that has drawn the most attention. Her size, strength, wingspan, and overall physical dominance set her apart from most players in the WNBA. While those traits have contributed to a successful career, critics argue that such advantages could point to biological differences that may impact the fairness of competition. With the WNBA now implementing mandatory gender testing, those long-avoided conversations are moving from the margins to the mainstream. The results could reshape not only Griner's future, but also the landscape of women's professional sports.
It was like a lady.
If Brittney Griner had been competing against biological males, her level of dominance likely wouldn't raise nearly as many eyebrows. But within the context of the WNBA, the speculation around her biological background has reached a point that can no longer be ignored. Some observers believe Griner may be intersex, meaning she could have biological traits that differ from typical female development, yet still allow her to compete under current policies. Others have speculated about the possibility of hormone therapy playing a role, potentially giving her an unfair physical advantage on the court. The WNBA's newly implemented mandatory gender testing policy is expected to bring clarity to these long-standing questions. What adds yet another layer of complexity is Griner's personal life and social presentation. While sexual orientation itself is not under scrutiny, many biological women are gay, critics argue that Griner's social and behavioral traits appear more aligned with traditional male norms than female ones. From her demeanor to the dynamics of her public relationships, some claim these patterns further raise questions about her biological and developmental identity. At the heart of this controversy lies a deeper issue: whether women's sports can preserve fair competition if biological distinctions are blurred or disregarded. The outcome of this new testing policy could have profound implications for the future of the WNBA, and for athletes like Brittney Griner.
By Autumn Johnson.
BG, right now you have 10 points, 5 rebounds. We see the Atlanta Dream as being very... Right now she's talking to the refs about holding.
The WNBA's decision to implement mandatory gender testing was likely not made lightly. The league is under mounting pressure from fans, athletes, and sponsors who want assurances that the playing field is truly level. With ongoing concerns about fairness and eligibility, maintaining the credibility of the sport has become a critical priority. This policy shift comes at a pivotal moment. Women's sports, especially basketball, are experiencing a surge in popularity, largely driven by the success of standout athletes like Caitlin Clark. Her talent, sportsmanship, and appeal have brought millions of new fans to the WNBA, and with them comes a new expectation: that women's sports feature authentic female competition. If questions about player eligibility begin to undermine that authenticity, the entire foundation of this growth could be at risk. The league understands that any perceived erosion of fairness could jeopardize everything Clark and others have built. Rollout of this testing policy will be closely watched. For players with nothing to hide, it should be an opportunity, not a threat. It's a chance to silence speculation, reaffirm their legitimacy, and help restore confidence in the integrity of the league.
We're going to send it back to you guys.
very important questions.
While the WNBA's new eligibility policy may be welcomed by some, it's likely to face strong opposition from others. Players who may be concerned about the outcome of mandatory testing are expected to challenge the policy both legally and in the court of public opinion. Several advocacy organizations have already threatened legal action, claiming the testing violates privacy rights and unfairly discriminates against certain individuals. But these arguments begin to unravel when viewed through the lens of the core purpose of women's sports: to provide fair competition exclusively for biological females. If an athlete cannot meet that foundational standard, it's reasonable to question their eligibility to participate. The media's response to this development has been predictably slanted. Mainstream sports outlets are prioritizing coverage of the controversy and discrimination narratives, while largely ignoring the fundamental issue of fairness in competition. Many seem more focused on protecting politically sensitive narratives than addressing the concerns of fans, athletes, and sponsors who simply want to preserve the integrity of women's basketball.
Foul down at 6, and it was the ticky-tack fouls, and again, Caitlin Clark doing a little bit of an acting job.
Despite the media's attempts to frame the WNBA's new testing policy as controversial, fans aren't buying the spin. Social media has erupted in support of the league's decision, with many users specifically naming Brittney Griner as a player who warrants closer scrutiny. The public has been ahead of the institutions on this issue for years, and now it seems the WNBA is finally catching up. The implications of this policy extend far beyond the league. Women's sports organizations around the world are closely watching how the WNBA navigates this moment. If the testing policy proves effective in preserving competitive integrity, it could serve as a model for other leagues and governing bodies wrestling with similar challenges. The Olympics, international federations, and elite competitions have long faced difficult questions about gender eligibility. The WNBA's approach may offer a framework for protecting biological female athletes, while also promoting transparency and fairness in a rapidly changing landscape. For Griner, however, this policy poses an existential threat, not just to her career, but to her legacy. If testing determines that she does not meet the biological criteria for female competition, it could lead to disqualification and redefine how her accomplishments are viewed in hindsight.
Not sure if that was actually a foul, but again, that's for the ticky-tack fouls that we were talking about earlier.
Everything Brittney Griner has accomplished in the WNBA, championships, records, accolades, could be called into question if the results of mandatory gender testing reveal she does not meet the league's biological criteria for female competition. What was once seen as dominance on the court may be re-evaluated through a very different lens. The psychological pressure on Griner must be immense. She's already facing intense public backlash over her controversial comments about Caitlin Clark, and now she's dealing with the far more serious possibility that her entire professional identity could be undermined. That level of scrutiny and stress may help explain some of her recent behavior and inflammatory public statements. Other WNBA players are likely watching this situation unfold with heightened attention. Most of them are biological females who've dedicated their lives to reaching the top of their sport. If it turns out that some of their competitors have benefited from biological advantages that fall outside the bounds of fair play, they deserve answers and accountability.
Brittney Griner is playing a game, and this is what Brittney Griner calls. I was not going to comment on any of this stuff until this took place. Watch what she says. The entire internet has reacted to this. Here's Brittney Griner. They're playing against the Indiana Fever, and look what she's saying. Go ahead, Rob.
For the ticky-tack fouls that we were talking.
The financial implications of the WNBA's new gender testing policy could be significant. If high-profile players are found to be ineligible under the new standards, the league may face lawsuits, sponsor withdrawals, and backlash from certain fan segments and advocacy groups. However, the long-term benefits of preserving competitive integrity likely outweigh these short-term risks. This policy sends a strong and overdue message about the WNBA's priorities. After years of criticism for placing politics above performance, the league appears to be taking a definitive stand for fairness in competition. That decision could go a long way toward restoring credibility and trust with fans who have felt Alienated by previous controversies, the implementation timeline will be critical. Moving too quickly could trigger legal battles that delay or derail the entire process. On the other hand, delaying action too long could spark accusations that the league is giving certain players time to prepare, adjust, or mount legal challenges. Striking the right balance will require careful planning and transparency. Most importantly, the integrity of the independent medical review process must be above reproach. The WNBA must ensure that testing is conducted by qualified, impartial experts to prevent accusations of bias or favoritism. How the league handles this policy, both in execution and communication, will not only affect individual careers, but could set a precedent for women's sports worldwide.
Talking about earlier today.
That pretty much sounds like trash effing white girl.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest.
So the whole market reacts to this with Brittney Griner, right?
The credibility of this entire policy will ultimately hinge on the integrity of the testing process. Fans, players, and stakeholders will need assurance that the evaluations are thorough, science-based, and free from political or ideological influence. For fans of women's basketball, this marks a long overdue step toward restoring competitive fairness. The WNBA is filled with incredibly talented athletes who deserve to compete on a level playing field, without lingering doubts about whether their opponents hold unfair biological advantages. When the integrity of the competition is in question, the value of every record, win, and accolade is diminished. The precedent this policy sets could ripple across the sports world. If the WNBA successfully implements mandatory gender testing with fairness, transparency, and scientific rigor, other women's leagues, both domestic and international, may be compelled to follow suit. This could usher in broader, more standardized policies for handling gender eligibility issues at all levels of competition, from high school to the Olympics. The scientific dimension of the testing process will be especially critical. Hormonal analysis, chromosomal data, and medical reviews must be handled by independent, credentialed experts. Only then can the league, and the public, have full confidence that the results reflect biological reality rather than political agendas.
And then the other quote, Rob, then I'm going to wrap this up and then I'm going to go to Adam. Put the quote of Brittney Griner, what she said about the NBA. This is so funny how all this stuff works out, right?
It will be fascinating to follow how this unfolds, especially as modern medical technology allows for precise insights into an individual's biological sex, hormone levels, and genetic profile. These tools offer clarity that leaves little room for speculation or ambiguity when it comes to eligibility in women's sports. The public relations battle around this policy is bound to be intense. Advocacy groups, media outlets, and political commentators will undoubtedly attempt to shape the narrative to suit their agendas. But in the end, the facts, revealed through credible, science-based testing, will speak louder than spin, opinion pieces, or social media campaigns. For Brittney Griner, this marks a definitive moment, one that many have anticipated for years. All the speculation, the questions, and the rumors have led to this, a moment of truth. The results of the testing could not only determine her future in the league, but also reshape how her past achievements are viewed. Whether this policy is remembered as a controversial misstep or a landmark move for fairness in women's sports will depend entirely on how it's implemented and what it ultimately reveals.
She says, this is from Brittney, every time we play her, there's this commotion, like this loud rumbling from the stands. Turns out it's people, thousands of them.
Many of the long-standing controversies surrounding Brittney Griner could finally be resolved through objective, scientific testing. The results will either vindicate her or expose issues that have been quietly avoided for years. Regardless of the outcome, the process itself marks a pivotal shift in how women's sports address fairness and eligibility. The WNBA's decision to implement this policy demonstrates that even progressive sports organizations eventually have to confront biological reality. You can sidestep science and facts for a time, but when competitive integrity is at stake, it inevitably takes precedence over political correctness. This moment isn't just about one player or one league. It's a reflection of broader cultural tensions unfolding across the sports world and society at large. Gender, identity, fairness, and biology have become deeply politicized topics. The WNBA now finds itself at the center of a battle that stretches far beyond basketball. What happens next will matter, not just for Griner, but for the future of women's sports as a whole. The outcome of this policy may well determine whether biological standards remain the foundation of female athletic competition, or whether they are replaced by subjective, politically driven criteria. The eyes of the world are watching.
Just sitting there, watching on purpose. It's very disruptive. It's called a freaking game that they pay you money to play. Don't play the game.
The implementation of this policy will have ripple effects far beyond the WNBA. It could shape how other professional leagues, collegiate programs, and athletic organizations around the world address gender eligibility moving forward. With Brittney Griner now in the spotlight, the results of this testing could fundamentally alter public perception, not just of her, but of women's basketball as a whole. This is an accountability moment that's been years in the making. The decisions made now will set a precedent, not only for fairness in sport, but for how society chooses to balance inclusion with integrity. What do you think the testing will reveal? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you're following this evolving story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth, no-spin coverage of sports' most explosive issues.